Now, some of you, as you watch my presentation, will say, God, I've seen this before. And you have. I think this is the fourth time I'm coming here. And about 80% of the slide deck is what you've seen before, just updated with the current data. The bottom line is my storyline hasn't changed. So you're seeing what I've been saying for the last 4 years. And we'll continue to say it until I believe it's time to change. Yeah. What are we doing wrong again? There we go. This has been a very unusual economic recovery. It's been much slower than we get in a typical recovery, and it's actually been more erratic too. So you see, 2.5%, 4% growth one quarter, and the next quarter it drops down to around 1%, and that sort of leaves you with the impression that something is wrong with the economy. And then you drive around, even in Michigan these days, especially if you're here, take advantage of this beautiful part of the state, and you'll see almost every other establishment has a help wanted sign on it. So our economy is reaching full employment. It's reached it very slowly, and as Sean showed, we finally got above where we were. So overall, the underlying fundamentals of the economy are very strong, but you don't have, what's missing is that, I'll go back to Keynes with the animal spirit. And nobody's excited about this economy. And yet here we are at full employment. You're beginning to hear anecdotal evidence that some restaurants in this area did not open this summer because they couldn't find enough help. And if you go to the restaurants, you'll find the service is very slow because they're all understaffed at this point. But the strong fundamentals of the economy are reflected in vehicle sales. In fact, the auto sector has led this recovery and has behaved very much like it typically does in a recovery. Last year we hit an all-time record for vehicle sales in the US, and I should probably add Canada and Mexico also. So overall in North America we had all-time record sales. I stay on the path that this year will be a new record. I don't share Sean's pessimism on that, because I don't see any fundamental change in the underlying economy. People are much more secure about their jobs, oil prices are low, interest rates are low. And as I showed a couple charts, the one thing that everybody was concerned about, that millennials weren't going to be buying cars, they were happy with their cell phones. Those of you that heard me talk about that before know what I thought of that whole notion. Well, now we're seeing evidence that that really was not true, and the millennials are in fact buying cars. So I think longer term, I'm much more optimistic than many people about this industry because our population continues to grow. Our economy may not be growing strongly, but it's growing. So, and as Sean mentioned, and I'll show in a couple charts, I'm a believer in that oil prices are going to remain low for longer. So all of that to me leads to that, we're in very favorable condition for vehicle sales. As I said, this has been a really unusual recovery. You can see we're well below previous recoveries. And there's nothing in there that suggests that's about to change anytime. What's really disturbing is we're not alone in this. If you look around the world, you're seeing the same sort of phenomena. The global economic growth has really slowed down. And contrary to what you hear a lot in the political debate, one of the drivers of that overall slowdown is slowdown in trade. So global trade has really not recovered from the Great Recession, and that's causing a global slowdown in economic growth. If you look at the 2000s, trade was growing roughly twice as fast as GDP. Now it's growing slightly below the rate of GDP growth. Employment, it had been very disappointing for a long period of time, but we're finally over the hump on that, and we're beginning to see job growth. I think those of you that have kids in colleges know how quickly kids are finding jobs as compared to a couple of years ago when it was hard to get recruiters on campus, and now you can't get enough people to sign up at some of the big major universities when you go out to recruit because they've got too many people searching for them. What's somewhat surprising to people, given how much we worry about our debt and deficits and everything else, is that fiscal policy, government spending and taxes, actually has been a negative in this economic recovery. Right after the Great Recession, we had that huge stimulus program. Subsequent to that, for those that remember the whole debate on sequester, both at the federal level, at the state and local level, government has held back economic growth. The Fed has been the only game in town. I tell people that when I was in college, my first macroeconomics textbook had one paragraph out of a 350-page book that talked about these eccentric economists at the University of Chicago that believe money mattered. But